Welcome back to Behind the Caution Tape. I'm your host, CrashLit. A lot to cover with USC athletics last week, a lot coming up this week. So we're going to get into all of it right here, right now on the show. But before we do, be sure to follow me on social media everywhere at CrashLit, primarily on Instagram. That's where you can learn what games I'll be at. And the key secret is, if you don't know already, if I post the official game day graphic that USC puts up the morning of game day, that means I will be at that game. Be sure to also follow the podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get it. It's just Behind the Caution Tape with CrashLit. You can also watch the video version of it on my YouTube channel. So subscribe to me there at CrashLit to get the latest video versions if you are a video person. And be sure to also check me out on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific time when I'm on The Voice of College Football with Matt Zemek, Ethan Inman, and our newest host, Nolan Ezet. So just want to get all that out there. So if you want more deeper football analysis in addition to everything that we talk about here on Behind the Caution Tape, The Voice of College Football is the place to be. So now let's get into all of it right here, right now. So let's start with the biggest news of the weekend with USC making it official. Gary Patterson, the former TCU incoming Hall of Fame coach, is USC's newest defensive coordinator. So Patterson was previously the head coach of TCU for 21 years. So obviously was there a long time. Very, obviously impressive resume there. So nothing, obviously, I think it's a good hire. Really impressive. Obviously won 6 conference championships. Had 5 times the number 1 overall total defenses. 3 straight number 1 total defenses. 11 10-win seasons and sent 49 players to the NFL. So really just, obviously a lot of impressive stuff. National Coach of the Year twice, and is incoming 2026 College Football Hall of Fame class. So I think it's really I think it's a good hire for USC. I mean, obviously, those of you who've listened to me, especially on The Voice of College Football, know that I was obviously really high on Pete Kwiatkowski getting the job, the former Texas defensive coordinator. But I think this is a good hire. I think obviously the main concern people would have is he hasn't been coaching full time since he resigned in October 2021 after being told he would not come back. That in part due to the fact that TCU had kind of tapered off and wasn't at its kind of peak when it was for most of his run. So obviously I think, like I said, I think it's a good hire. I think he'll be able to get his recruiting skills back under him. So I'm not too worried, but still obviously, things could go wrong. But obviously there's been, I think as a result of Patterson coming in, I think Lincoln Riley has understood that, I think it kind of the impression I got from reading Ryan Karchi's Times at Troy newsletters was that he wanted to have more of it. He wanted to try to keep the rest of his defensive staff together after Danton Lynn left for Penn State. But I think probably as he interviewed candidates, I have to suspect he was realizing, all right, if I want to get some guys I want, I might have to let them have a bit more of a free hand with the defense. And I think results of that, I have to suspect, I don't know for sure, is Doug Belk's contract not getting renewed, and he is out as secondaries as safeties coach and coaching the secondary, so he is out. So we'll see who they bring in. And then also the other big news is Mike Eckler is coming in as both the linebackers coach and special teams coordinator. Unclear what's going to happen to current special teams coordinator Ryan Dutery. I guess my only concern with having him have double duty is Lincoln Riley in the past has not had a special teams coordinator or dedicated one saying, oh, we got guys who got knowledge of it, so we can use that elsewhere. But I think this might be a little different just due to the fact that I think it's a specific guy. It's not just, 3 guys who got their hands partially in it. I think, he's got double duty, but I like it because, at least it's clear what his roles are. He's the guy for special teams and the linebackers coach. And on that note, I do also want to talk about what is happening to former linebackers coach Rob Ryan, who will be moving into an analyst role. And that is something I am very happy about. For those of you who don't know, I thought Rob Ryan would come in, be hype. He was like, oh yeah, we're going to do great things, Like I said, he was a funny guy to listen to. It was unhinged in a good, fun way. Problem was, that didn't really translate to results on the field in the linebackers room. So I'm not and I think, though, I know I was hoping they would completely part ways with him, but as I've thought about this move, I'm not opposed to it, actually. I've started to reconsider my position in maybe Rob Ryan is a good asset for USC. He's just not a good on-field coach, at least at the collegiate level, in my opinion. So I think him being in an analyst role, especially with all his experience, the wealth of knowledge and experience he has from his years in the NFL, I think can still benefit USC. I just don't think it was translating into what fans were hoping to see on the field, both on the field and on the recruiting trail. So really, I think for those reasons, I think it's a smart role. I think it's a smart move by Lincoln Riley and USC to move him into that analyst role. I think he'll be more comfortable there. So I've started to reconsider my position that maybe, I think outright firing him, I wouldn't have been opposed, but I think it's also still a smart move to keep him around because of the knowledge that he brings, that he has just from his career. So just wanted to, obviously get that out. And then a few other things that have come out and are coming out. So the 12-team college football playoff will stay at 12 teams. SEC wanted 16 with primarily at-larges. Big Ten wanted 24 with primarily automatic qualifiers. I honestly like the 5+11 model, and if you're going to go 24, in my opinion, this might sound crazy, but you got to include every conference. I don't care if they're going to lose, and don't even bring up the whole safety thing. If you're going to do that, get rid of payday games and have Power 4 schools just play 12 power conference games a year. I know that won't happen, but just please nobody make this about safety. And it's kind of an insult to those guys too, especially who a lot of can later prove that they can play in the Power 4. So please just don't do that. Please don't go. So I think probably the 5+11, the 16 one that the SEC proposed, I think is the best model, at least in the short term. Especially because, the buys have benefited one school, Indiana. Teams that have had a bye in the last 2 years are 1-7 since the college football playoff expanded to 12 teams. So I think, honestly, for now, I think 12 is fine. Gives, like the committee said, like they were saying, the CFP was saying that it gives them more time to really evaluate the process and evaluate everything. So I think really the 12 teams is fine. I do have some issues with some of the tweaks, and like I said, I could see it getting to 16. I like that. 24, I feel like you can only do if every conference gets an automatic bid, because you need to create the belief that anyone can win, even if that's not exactly realistic. That's why you expanded the playoff last year. I read a really good article, I forget who was by, my dad sent me, for that very reason of why you expand the playoffs. Because realistically, only a few teams have a chance to win it. You need to create the belief. So it might be a hot take to say that, but that's the only way I could be comfortable with it going to 24. Otherwise, I'm in favor of the 16-team model, the 5+11. And then just a few things that did change with this current one based on the memorandum of understanding that was signed when the Big Ten and SEC basically seized most of the control over the format and structure, and they couldn't agree on it. So that's why we're sticking with the 12, is if Notre Dame is ranked inside the top 12, they automatically get in. Regardless of whether or not they'd be kicked out by an at-large, they are in. So I do get USC's frustration about that, especially like with the whole negotiations. Like I do get that part. I still don't think USC was right to, do what they did to end the Notre Dame series, but I've already gone on that rant, so we won't go there. And then every Power 4 conference will get an automatic bid into the current format. So we won't see 2 Group of 5 schools or now Group of 6 schools get in like we saw with both Tulane and James Madison. Duke would have got in and James Madison would have been out. And honestly, that's one that both these tweaks that I'm seeing, I'm not exactly liking, because it was the ACC's own doing that is the reason Duke ended up as a champion, and they got locked, and then they managed to just get Miami in there, even without them playing in the conference championship. So really, it's the ACC made its own bet on its conference tiebreakers. I'm just surprised schools don't just be like, all right, here are our top 2 team, we go record, and then any sort of tiebreak is based on CFP rankings to ensure, both your best teams get in. So I'm surprised they didn't do that. But anyways, so they go to that format, and then pretty much then after that, it's just like, so they're pretty much guaranteeing all the Power 4 conferences a bid, which generally shouldn't be an issue, but in years that we see something like this, if a conference has a really bad year and a couple Group of 6 conferences do well, why are you punishing them is my question. So just wanted to, bring that up. But in general, I think I'm more in favor of just more at-larges, not automatic qualifiers, because it just devalues the regular season And why even play the games then? What's the point? So just wanted to talk about that because it definitely will affect USC going forward. So we'll see what happens with all of it next year. And then the other thing coming up tomorrow is the Big Ten releases all the football schedules for the conference for its member schools. So I'm mainly interested to see exactly what comes of USC's schedule. So here's what we know so far. So obviously USC is not playing Notre Dame next year. The Irish immediately then scheduled BYU. USC has 2 non-conference games scheduled as of now. They'll open the season on September 5th against Fresno State at the Coliseum. And then 1 week later, they will welcome Louisiana for the first time. And then as for they're still waiting to hear their final non-conference opponent. I suspect we'll find that tomorrow. Rumor is it's Stanford, but I'm very curious to see what exactly happens when that schedule's released. And then as for the conference play, while we don't know the dates yet, we do know that USC will host Maryland, Ohio State, Oregon, and Washington. And then away games will be against Indiana, Penn State, Rutgers, Wisconsin, and UCLA. So honestly, some really interesting matchups, especially I'm really intrigued by Indiana, Penn State. Those are ones that I definitely got circled, and I'm hoping to make if the dates work for me, just with everything going on. So obviously a lot there. We'll see more what happens tomorrow. So really excited for this reveal to see exactly who USC plays and when. So that's all we got there. So now we'll move on to men's basketball, where Trojans had a tough 74-68 loss to Northwestern on Wednesday. Jordan Marsh led the way with 19 points. Jacob Cofield led with 12 rebounds. And Ezra Azar led with 3 assists. So USC struggled to contain Nick Martinelli, who had 22 points for NU. And I think at the time was the leading scorer in the Big Ten, if I heard that correctly. And then USC also struggled from the free throw line and with three-pointers. Chad Baker-Mazara also had a tough game, fouling out only 13 minutes into it after only 13 minutes of play early in the second half. And even just having Elijah Arenas back, it definitely wasn't his best game, especially because he's still coming back, especially after the knee injury that he suffered over the summer. But then USC went out and got a 73-71 win at Wisconsin yesterday afternoon. I listened to it as I was driving back from Mammoth. Great game. Definitely very stressful even as I was at the wheel. But, it was definitely helped with the drive for sure. And Chad Baker-Mazar led with 29 points. Jacob Kofi led with 11 rebounds and also 5 assists. While USC was struggling with the rebounds at times, especially just allowing Wisconsin to attack the glass when the Badgers were shooting, they were able to, get the dub in Madison behind a huge game from Baker-Mazara, even with Jordan Marsh out. And Marsh has been critical in the last few games, especially with Baker-Mazara struggling a little bit. So really, excited for that. So USC now sits at 15-5 on the year and 4-5 in Big Ten play. So up next, the Trojans will remain on the road and will play at Iowa. The Hawkeyes are 14-5 overall and 4-4 in conference play. That'll be on the Big Ten Network at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, and then they come home on Saturday to host 9-11 overall and 2 at Rutgers, who's 9-11 overall and 2-7 in Big Ten play. That'll be at 4 p.m. on Peacock. So yeah, USC road trip is going to have one more tough game, and then it's going to get a bit more manageable after that, and then you can't overlook Rutgers even with the schedule coming up. Just after what happened against Northwestern, USC can't afford to overlook opponents that they should be beating at home. So I think USC still has a chance. I think I saw Joe Lunardi projected them as a 11 seed with a play-in game, so it's going to be tight, but I think this team has it, and obviously they've shown the potential to do it. The question is, can they play better for longer periods of time? And that's been the real question that they need to answer ever since conference play started, because a lot of these games they've had chances to win. So, but really impressed with this win against the Badgers, probably their best win of the season so far in my opinion. So now move on to women's basketball, who is continuing to struggle. They lost 74-68 at number 13 Michigan State on Thursday. Kara Dunn led with 23 points, 6 rebounds, and Kennedy Smith led with 4 assists. So while USC was competitive at times, they couldn't quite stay with the Spartans at the end. Then the Trojans then lost 73-67 at number 7 Michigan yesterday morning. Dunn led with 29 points and 10 rebounds. And Jazzy Davidson led with 7 assists. So despite being blown out in the first quarter, USC did manage to rally back into the game, especially in the third quarter. They outscored the Wolverines 31-13, but then fell apart in the fourth quarter and couldn't sustain the lead and fell apart in the fourth quarter. And that's kind of been the story. USC has struggled to close out games where they've been in it. So really So USC now sits at 11-9 overall and 3-6. And I will say, Lindsay Gottlieb is right when she says that USC's close. They're right there. The only thing is she can't keep using that excuse. We saw what happened last year when Lincoln Riley said, "Oh, we're just a few plays away from winning." You can use, even if it's true, that's not what fans want to hear. So I think she's right to point that out, that they've been competitive. Like, there's no denying that. Like, they've been in games against tough opponents. Like, Michigan State, Michigan, Maryland, those are all three very good teams that USC's had to face this year. But you can't keep using that excuse forever. So hopefully USC is able to, take care of business. So they definitely have, some tough games coming up, though. They face they host number 10 Iowa, who is 18-2 overall and 9-0 in conference play, on Thursday night at 6 p.m. on Peacock, and then Rutgers on Sunday at 2 p.m. on Big Ten Plus, with the Scarlet Knights being 9-10 overall and 1-7 in Big Ten play. So a couple of tough games, especially against the Hawkeyes. Really good this year, and then obviously you're going to have to look out for. You got to be ready for Rutgers, especially USC has dropped a couple games that they probably should have won. So really USC's just got to play competitive in both these games if they're going to try to avoid loss number 10 this year, because obviously it's looking a little precarious with how things have gone ever since I think USC was 10-2 or 10-3 to start the new year, and things have not been looking too good since then. Yeah, I'll check on that. Pretty much, yeah, since the new year, USC has been, they're 1-6 since, they're 1-6. So yeah, they were 10-3 they're 1-6 ever since the clock flipped to 2026. So yeah, USC really trying to, snap out of this one. They've been close, but they need to, figure out how can they get from close to finishing the job and not imploding and collapsing in the fourth quarter. So we'll now move on to a brief bit of news from women's volleyball, who announced the hire of UC Santa Barbara head coach Matt Jones as their new associate head coach. So I think it's a big move for them, even if it is just a one-year thing. He went 64-30 in 3 years with the Gauchos, and 41-13 in Big West play. So really, I think it's a good hire for USC. Get someone who's got experience, very knowledgeable. Reminds me of the move that Brad Keller made 2 years ago in getting former Long Beach State head coach Tyler Hildebrand to leave his alma mater to come be the associate head coach at USC. And even if it's only a one-year thing, I still think that can be very good for USC, because Hildebrand would then leave to take over St. Mary's the following year. So really, I think it's a good hire. Excited for it. Hopefully USC can, snap out of it and get past that round of 32. And I think they're really close. They've got good players in the gym. Obviously, they got Laylee Ostavar, who's the Gatorade Player of the Year. So, yeah, Laylee Ostavar was named the Gatorade California Player of the Year. So really, just a lot of good players on this team. It's just, can they, get past that round of 32? They had the home court advantage this year, but fell to Cal Poly in that second round. So really, can 2026 be the year that Brad Keller gets his squad into the Sweet 16, into really being at that level standard of competing for championships, where he's saying as he told me this summer, I've played the clip multiple times on this show. He said, and I quote, "If we're not competing for championships, then it's a failure." So I'm not trying to suggest that last year's season was a failure, but that's what he said, of just, they fell short of that goal. So that just shows the standard that he set for his program. So now move on to men's volleyball, who moved up to number 4 in the country. They moved up to number 4 and got a 3-0 sweep over Fort Valley State on Saturday. 25-14, 25-22, 25-22. So Dylan Klein, Noah Roberts, and Wesley Smith led with 10 kills each. Klein led with 3 aces. Klein, Roberts, and Tyler Robinson led with 2 blocks each. Caleb Blanchette led with 31 assists. and also 9 digs. So while USC won, you got to give credit to Fort Valley State. They showed a lot of fight, especially in the last 2 sets. And I was also really, at the same time, impressed that USC's continued to flex its depth on its roster. So really playing a lot of guys. So I think that's why you're seeing some closer scores. We'll see what happens this week, obviously. So they now sit 4-0, and up next they'll host Ohio State on Friday. The Buckeyes are 4-1 on the year. They'll be at 7 p.m. on Big Ten Plus. So it's the first road trip coming up for the Buckeyes. I believe they play UCLA the night before they come to Galen Center. This one's a little personal for me as well, I gotta say, because one of my former coaches when I played volleyball in high school at Balboa Bay Volleyball Club was none other than Buckeye assistant coach Stephen Duho, who's been on the staff for almost a year now, I believe, if I am reading that correctly. He was previously with Arizona, so I saw him at Galen Center in 2023 with the Wildcat women program when they came to Galen. So I'm excited to see him for sure on Friday for that one. So we'll see how USC does with this next game coming up against the Buckeyes. So we move on to women's water polo, who had a big weekend, going 3-0. They had 2 games on Friday where they beat number 18 UC Santa Barbara 23-4. Emily Oswald led with 4 goals. Anna Reed had 5 saves and no goals allowed in the first 2 quarters. And Lauren Schneider came in for the second half and had 4 saves and 4 goals allowed. So USC just blew the Gauchos out from the Stars 15-0 at halftime. So pretty much over from there. Then after that, they beat Biola 17-5. Megan McInich led with 5 goals. Reed had 3 saves and 9 goals allowed in the first half. Schneider had 10 saves and 3 goals allowed in the second half. And then USC also got the early jump out ahead and didn't look back. Then the following day, USC traveled down to San Diego and beat number 21 San Diego State 22-8. Maggie Johnson led with 4 goals. Reed had 7 saves and 4 goals allowed, playing the first 23 minutes of the game, so getting pulled, it appears, with a minute left in the third quarter. Then Schneider played the rest of the way, had 4 saves and 4 goals allowed in those final 9 minutes. So another game where USC just jumped out early and allowed them to play steady and win. So as I said, USC is off to a 5-0 start. They will next take part in the Triton Invitational in San Diego County, so both in like San Diego, La Jolla area, where they have their first matchup confirmed. On Friday, they will take on Claremont Mud Scripps on Friday at 8 a.m. Claremont Mud Scripps is 1-3 on the year. Then they'll play an opponent on Saturday and also the Sunday. So it's an opportunity for USC, if they play well and win all their games, to make a case to be the number 1 team in the country. So track and field took part in the Stan Scott Invite in Lubbock, hosted by Texas Tech on Friday, and got 8 event wins out of it. So they claimed victories in men's and women's shot put, women's 60-meter, men's 60-meter, women's 60-meter hurdles, men's 800-meter, women's 800-meter, and men's 4x400. So really just obviously another impressive event from both the men and women's in track and field. So we'll head next on this upcoming Friday to the Lost Dodds Invite. That'll be hosted by Kansas State in Manhattan. So USC looks to keep its dominant form as the season gets underway. So swim and dive will be at UCLA on Friday, with Saturday being the platform diving. So USC on the women's side. Men will next host UNLV on February 6th at 1 p.m. So USC looking to bounce back from that tough last weekend against Stanford and Cal. We'll now move on to men's tennis, who's had their ITA Kickoff weekend up in Berkeley, where they lost 4-0 to 12th seeded UCF on Friday. UCF won the doubles point, and then USC failed to win a singles match. But the following day, USC got a 4-1 win over number 15 Cal, where USC won the doubles point and got singles wins Cal won the doubles point, but USC got singles wins from Nathan Truvet, Jack McCarthy, Max Exted, and Niels Hoffman. And so USC now sits at 3-2 on the year. Up next for USC, they'll face Cal again, actually, up in Berkeley. So they'll face Cal up in Berkeley. The Golden Bears are now on Saturday at 10 a.m. Golden Bears are 4-2 on the year. And then they will play Stanford the following day. They will play at Stanford the following day at noon on February 1st. So yeah, opportunity for USC to build off of last weekend and really keep things and really just try to keep things going, get some momentum heading into as the non-conference season continues. Women's tennis then had 3 matches this week, getting a 5-2 win at Arizona, last on January 19th. So Arizona got the doubles point, but then USC got singles wins from Emma Charney, Jana Hassam, Imi Haddad, Krisha Mahendran, and Eugenia Zozaya. And then for the women's team, their ITA kickoff weekend was in Charlottesville, where they got a 4-3 win against Wisconsin on Friday. So the Badgers won the doubles point, but the Trojans got singles win from Krishna Mahendran, Eugenia Zozava, Lily Fairclough, and Daniela Burrell. But then the following day, USC lost 4-0 to 14th ranked Virginia, when UVA got the doubles point and USC didn't win a singles match. So the Trojans dropped their first one of the year, sit at 5-1. And up next, they also head on the road to take on Stanford and Cal. But it'll be Stanford on Friday and at 1:30 p.m. and then Cal on Saturday at 1:30 p.m. So it's an opportunity for USC to keep building off its strong start. So yeah. So up next is men's golf. So they took part in the Copper Cup at El Niguel Country Club in Laguna Niguel, which is hosted by Arizona State on last Monday and Tuesday. So in their 2 match plays, they fell to UCLA 7.5 to 3.5, and then the following day lost to Arizona State 8.5 to 2.5 in match play. So up next for them, which has already started off today, USC has already got the Southwest Invitational that started today, which will be hosted by Pepperdine up at North Ranch Country Club from starting today and running through Wednesday. So I'll have results on that next week, but I do have the starting lineup that they'll be running out, which will be Antonio Safa, Jaden Dumdamaya, Nicholas Dominguez, Luke Stock, and Jack Buchanan will be running out for the Trojans in the Southwest Invitational. Then finally for women's golf, USC got a 3.5 to 1.5 win in the Battle of LA on Friday against UCLA at Rancho La Quinta Country Club. So Trojans getting a big match play win there. And then for them, next will be the Therese Hessian Regional Challenge at Palos Verdes Golf Club. That'll be from February 1st through 3rd. So I'll bring more info on that next week. So how I did last week, I went 0-1 in the one game I went to, which was men's basketball against Northwestern. So that puts me at 6-3 on the year for the men's basketball team. I'm 38-15-1 on this school year. 349, 134-1 all time. So my plans for this week are going to be women's basketball on Wednesday and Sunday against Iowa and Rutgers respectively. Men's volleyball on Friday against Ohio State, and men's basketball on Saturday also against Rutgers. So that's going to do it for us here on Behind the Caution Tape. Thank you again, everybody who's been tuning in, subscribing. It means the world to me. Obviously, looking forward to being back here next week. I'm going to work on trying to get some guests on here soon. I'll see y'all soon, and be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen. Follow me on Instagram at CrashLit. Be sure to check on game day. Be sure to check each game day to know if I will be there or not. If I post a graphic on my Instagram story, that means I will be there. So I'll see y'all soon. See you next week. Fight on.